Hello, hello, hello. This is Edward Neufville from Neufville Law in Silver Spring, Maryland. Thank you for joining us today. Let's start by basically, what's happening. Starting January 21st, 2026, the U.S. stopped issuing immigrant visas. Now, what are immigrant visas? Immigrant visas are basically the visas that are granted to individuals to enter the country as green card holders. For example, if you're married to a U.S. citizen, you're living overseas, your spouse applies for you, you go through the process, you're granted permanent residence, you then enter the U.S. as a green card holder. Or if you have, say, parents or siblings who are filed for you, you're overseas in your home country, you go through the immigrant visa process. That whole process where you are not in the U.S., but you're outside of the U.S., going through your immigration procedures, that is the immigrant visa process. That is what has been paused for nationals of 75 countries. Now, importantly, you'll probably ask me and say, well, can I still apply for the immigrant visa process if I'm overseas? The answer is yes. Now, interviews are still happening. They haven't stopped. Applications are still being accepted. And so, as best as it is, you can file your immigrant visa application. You can attend your interview. Your applications can be processed from the USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, to the National Visa Center, to the U.S. Consulate. The only thing that is not happening at this time is that they are not approving or issuing those immigrant visas. Now, the proclamation indicated that there might be some case-by-case exceptions. We haven't received a full explanation as to what those national interest exceptions or those case exceptions might be, but for the most part, those still exist. And so if you have any specific special circumstances regarding your case, or if there's something urgent humanitarian, or if you're coming into the U.S. Is in the national interest, those are things that we can highlight and we can raise with the Department of State and the consulate to see if there's an exception that can be made. Now, this doesn't affect tourist visas. Okay, this does not affect those who are coming to the World Cup. You can still apply for your for your visitors visas. It doesn't affect students. These are non-immigrant visas. They're not included in the pause. Okay, so if you hear someone saying, well, they ban all travel to the U.S., I can't travel, I can't come. Number one, that's not true. Two, there's only 75 countries that are affected. Applications are still being accepted. Interviews are still going on. There's a limited amount of exceptions that one could apply for. Although it's not clear, it's still a possibility. All right. Now you may ask yourself and say, well, why is this happening? What's the rationale behind the pausing of the visas? I mean, why? President Trump has stated that it's for reasons tied to the public charge. Now, most people say, well, what is public charge? I mean, I'm coming to the U.S., I'm going to be working, I'm not going to ask for food stamps, any of those things. Well, when you deal with immigrant visas, especially when it's family-based, meaning that your spouse is applying for you, your parents or your siblings are applying for you, the person who's applying for you has to show that they make enough money to support you, and that your coming into the U.S. will not adversely impact or affect the United States, in the sense that they won't be applying for food stamps or any kind of assistance, that you will be responsible for them in the event that they fall on hard times. And so that is what the public charge is all about. Now, there's some categories that where individuals who are coming to the U.S. do not need to show that they can support themselves, or where the public charge will apply, such as if you're coming into the U.S. For purposes of working. If your company has applied for you to get a green card, that's not necessary. And so these are maybe some of the places where we can look to kind of differentiate and say, well, this proclamation shouldn't even apply to this person because they're under a whole nother category. Individuals who are coming, into the U.S., based on different reasons. So for example, like there are individuals who have to leave the U.S. In order to obtain their lawful permanent residence. Those individuals might be working already. They may have paid taxes for the last 10 years. They may have lawfully worked, lawfully paid taxes, and so the issue of the public charge is only relevant if the person has not worked in the U.S. and paid taxes for 10 years. So there are some exceptions that I think can be made and how best we can address that. Okay. Now, in assessing whether or not you, as the new immigrant coming to the U.S., would be able to work, support yourself, the question is, well, how old are you? Are you an older person? Do you have lots of medical issues that will require you needing care or assistance? Does your financial sponsor, do they have the resources to take care of an older person? Those are questions that the consular officer will look at and will also take into considerations. There's also a discussion about expanding consideration to non-cash benefits like Medicaid or SNAP. But in all, you kind of get an idea that with this new, I wouldn't say this new proclamation, but with this proclamation and this pause, that the effect is want to make sure that individuals coming into the U.S. are able to, one, I would say, integrate, two, be able to work, which means the age, the health, proficiency for English. And so those are the things that are being taken into consideration with this pause. It's not being framed as a terrorism or national security issue. It's mostly being framed as a financial self-sufficiency review. As it regards the public charge, January 2026 pause, if you're inside the United States and applying for a green card through adjustment of status, meaning that you're not leaving the country, you won't be doing it at the U.S. consulate, but in the United States, your case is not affected in regards to this January 2026 public charge immigrant visa pause. Okay? Your case can continue. Now, if you leave the United States and you go overseas and you have the consular process and you're from one of the affected countries, you may not be able to return to the U.S. So you need to think carefully, and you need to be able to plan and speak with your attorney. So do not leave the U.S. without speaking to our office or speaking to your attorney. Very, very important. You do not want to be stuck overseas in this situation, all right? Critical warning, those who have what is called provisional waivers, and this will be cases where individuals enter the U.S. without inspection, or quite frankly, if they entered without papers, or if you're unable to obtain a green card physically in the U.S. There are some cases where you can get a green card, but you have to depart the U.S. and then get your case approved overseas. And there's a special process called the I-601A provisional waivers. Be mindful before you leave the United States, make sure to talk with your attorney, or if you are our clients, you've probably heard from us, but make sure to speak, because if you leave the country, you may not be able to come back if you are subjected to this public charge pause. All right, so it's very important. The theme for this is that before you do anything, speak with your attorney. Not speak with your attorney that you know on TikTok, Instagram, or Google, or whatever it is, okay? That means speak with your own attorney so that they understand, your situation, and you can ask questions clearly in confidence. U.S. citizens can still file for their spouses. Yes, that has not stopped at all. I've seen people or online have made the comments that, U.S. citizens can no longer apply for the spouses. Not true. Okay, U.S. citizens can still apply for their spouses. They can still submit the applications. As I said, you can still go through the process. If you're from one of the affected countries, of course, you may not be issued an immigrant visa, but that doesn't mean that your spouse cannot apply for you. Also be mindful that there is a 180-day review. So after 180 days, the Department of State, White House will review this proclamation and make changes, not make changes, but definitely my advice is that continue, submit your applications so that if and when this pause is lifted, you're in line and things are moving along, okay? If you're a green card holder, can you travel? Yes, you can travel. You can leave and come back. You're not affected by this pause. If you have dual national, 2 passports from the countries, yes, you can travel. If your green card or your immigrant visa application is based on a country that is not affected, you can proceed and move forward, okay? So those are things to be mindful of. Refugees and asylees, not affected. Why? Because you don't have to prove you're not subjected to the public charge grounds, so they are not affected. So you don't have to. You're not affected as a refugee or as an asylee. And diplomats, certain categories are also exempted. All right. So, immediate guidance: if you're in the U.S., do not depart. Do not attend a consular interview after January 21st without legal advice. Key: without legal advice. If you're abroad and your visa is not printed before January 20, as you know, you won't get your visa. Expect delays or refusal, not straight out refusal, but just sometimes we'll just say that we cannot issue your visa at this time. Every case is different, so don't assume. There are other advocacy measures that can be taken. So, needless to say, this situation is evolving rapidly and requires a case-by-case legal analysis. And so, if you have a pending visa, if you have a pending immigrant visa, approved I-601A provisional waiver, you're scheduled for a consular interview, which is outside of the U.S., or questions about how this affects your family, call us 301-562-7995. This is not the time to do any immigration processes by yourself. All right, well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you all. Thank you very much for taking a brief pause from your busy day to come and join us. And we look forward to assisting you and working with you throughout your immigration journey. Ciao, ciao.